Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Sociology. And today I'm going to be talking about the sociological perspectives. I already talked about the sociological imagination, so let's get on to some sociological perspectives. This is in the textbook, but I thought that I would reinforce some of it to help you get a deeper understanding here. So let's um, Let's do this. Okay, so sociological perspectives. First perspective I want to talk about is functionalism. Okay, functionalism, according to Conley in the textbook, is the theory that various social institutions and social processes in society exist to serve some important or necessary function to keep society running. Yes, so it's basically about it views society as made up of parts, all contributing to the functioning whole. So social forces and social institutions such as politics, the economy, religion, etc., those different forces work together to create and maintain society. Okay, how things function is because of all these different parts working together. So social order is possible through this kind of consensus between these social institutions here and social forces that's going on in society. Some people say that if something exists in society, it has to have a function. Okay. Oh, by the way, think about this as a human body metaphor. Okay. A human body has a brain, a stomach, a liver, fingers and toes, things like that, and they all serve a function to keep the body going. Okay, so think of like all those different parts of the body that keep it going here. Some people say that, yeah, that if something exists, that it has to have a function, such as crime. Um, some people would say that crime doesn't contribute to the stability of society. It doesn't keep society running. Some people say that it would be like, it interferes with society running. But Durkheim, Emil Durkheim, the very famous sociologist, whom I don't like very much, but I'll talk a lot about him, he said that crime has three functions, and you'll be reading about this. He says that the first function of crime is basically it creates moral boundaries. Okay, that we know that something is wrong because somebody did it. Okay, so it creates crime is like it defines what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. Second, it leads to social solidarity, social bonding, social cohesion. Okay, people bond over crime. You know those times where you're on your social media feed and somebody has committed a crime and everybody is saying, "Oh, that's so terrible. I hope that whatever happens to them, blah blah blah." Okay, yeah, that kind of thing. That's social bonding. Crime can also be an indicator of where social change is needed. You know, for example, if there's a lot of street crime in an area that has a lot of poverty, maybe the problem is poverty, and that needs to be changed. Okay, so it has three functions. Durkheim said that crime is actually inevitable, not only inevitable, but necessary. That if crime didn't exist, we would have to create crime by creating laws, because we need that kind of like definition of like those moral boundaries. Okay, and we need that social cohesion, especially. Okay, so um, there's different kinds of functions, manifest and latent functions. Manifest functions, this comes from Robert Merton. Manifest functions are the open and stated functions, and latent functions are the hidden functions, the not stated functions, but they still contribute to social stability. For example, education. We all know what education is for, like community colleges are there for you to transfer, learn basic skills, and even though some of that's falling away, and or to do some stuff to get into the workforce, get into like vocations and stuff. And so community colleges report to the state what they are doing, things like that. So, however, it has latent functions. Societies need places where young people can gather and build relationships and even intimate relationships. Okay, it doesn't have to be education; it can be other places, work, school, church, whatever. But yet it contributes to the stability of society if young people have places where they can meet each other. Okay, form friendships, form intimate relationships, etc. Foothill College does not report this to the state. Okay, yet it's still, it's a latent function. Okay, we didn't build it to do this, but it still has that result. Okay, so manifest functions are open and stated functions. Latent functions are hidden and unstated functions. Okay, so next sociological perspective I want to talk about is conflict theory. Okay, conflict theory is different than functionalism. Conley says it's the idea that conflict between competing interests is the basic animating force of social change and society in general. Okay, it basically looks at different groups competing for power and emphasizes the role of power and coercion in producing social order rather than consensus, as the functionalist perspective states. This is a lot like dialectics, okay? The idea that there's a thesis and an antithesis, they clash and creates a synthesis. Change happens when opposites occur, is what dialectics is about. I'll talk about dialectics later on. Those of you familiar with it are there. If you're not yet familiar with it, you will be, okay? So, there's three central themes that's not on this slide, but I'll just talk about it. First of all, this comes from a marriage and family textbook I used to have from, Schwartz and Scott's Marriages and Families, Diversity and Change. The first central theme is that humans have basic interests. There are things that they want and they attempt to acquire. Okay. Second is that power is at the base of all social relationships. It's always scarce, it's unequally distributed, and it is coercive. Okay. And finally, that values and ideas are weapons used by groups to advance their own ends rather than the ends of societies. So you'll see that a lot in political debates where people use values and ideas to advance the cause of whatever party they're in rather than in society. You'll see this. Okay. This is based upon the work of Karl Marx. Karl Marx believed that human history was fraught with conflict, class conflict, okay? And in modern times, it's the conflict between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie are those who own the means of production. So they own the productive property, the land, the factories, all it takes to make stuff, okay? So they own that, okay? The proletariat own nothing, so they must sell their labor to the bourgeoisie to survive. And they are in a conflict with one another over resources, and the bourgeoisie wins, okay? Others from the conflict perspective say, yeah, Carl, you're right. But there's also racial inequality and gender inequality, as well as class inequality. There's conflict between people of different racial groups and conflict between people of different genders. Okay, so functionalism and conflict theory tend to be at odds with one another. Really, they're both different ways of viewing the world. They're both true. Okay, but it's just how do you want to through what lens do you want to look at society? I think conflict is more interesting, but functionalism, yeah, I mean things do work. I'm actually amazed at how well things work sometimes. So now those are macro theories, okay? They have to do with the structure of society and things. So this next one is micro theory. This is symbolic interactionism. Conley calls it a micro theory in which shared meanings, orientations, and assumptions form the basic motivations behind people's actions. Okay, so basically, it views society as made up of small-scale interactions and is concerned with the meanings people attribute to their actions and interactions. This is really important. meaning. Okay, so it's concerned with like the meanings that people give behind their actions and interactions. Okay, um, Herbert Blumer had three core principles of symbolic interactionism. The first is meaning. Meaning is, as I said, core to everything. Okay, it's central to human behavior. The second is language. Language gives humans a means by which to negotiate meaning through symbols. And through language, humans come to identify meaning or naming and develop discourse. Okay? And the third one is thought. Thought modifies each individual's interpretation of the symbols. Okay? So thought like also requires you to imagine yourself in the other person's position. Okay? One example here. Have you ever been on a date with somebody who wasn't on a date? That has happened to me, by the way. Okay. Have you ever been on a date with somebody who wasn't on a date? Either you were on a date and they weren't, or you were not on a date and they were. Okay. That's where we have the breakdown of meaning. For example, if somebody asked you, want to go to dinner, is that a date or is that friends hanging out? What is the meaning of dinner? Okay. And what is the meaning of dinner? Would lunch or coffee be different? And thought. What is like what are how do you like interpret how do you see the other person's definition of the situation? That's a key phrase, by the way. Definition of the situation. It answers the question, what is going on here? Okay. Things like that. Meaning, language, and thought. And we know that symbolic interactionism is a way of viewing the world. We know that it's like it happens because of when it breaks down. If I all of a sudden was posting a lecture on biology or chemistry or something, you might think, wait a second, what's that? We don't share the same definition of the situation. So maybe I posted the wrong lecture, or maybe you're in the wrong class. But those kinds of things. Okay. So we see it when it breaks down. Now, this is a micro level theory, but it's also on the macro level. I want to here talk about the Thomas theorem and the social construction of reality. Much of this I get from Margaret Anderson. Okay. But Conley talks about a social construction. And I'll read you his definition. A social construction is an entity that exists because people behave as it exists, and whose existence is perpetuated as people and social institutions act in accordance with the widely agreed upon formal rules or informal norms of behavior associated with that entity. So society cannot be held together without something shared, and that's a shared social reality. Now, many state, and I agree, that there is little or anything that is shared that is not socially construction. Social reality is not given in nature, but emerges out of social interaction. Our perception, as Margaret Anderson says, our perception of what is real is determined by the subjective meanings that we attribute to an experience. Things do not have intrinsic meaning, but rather meanings are imposed on things, and those meanings are social constructions. Okay, so now this can have major consequences here. For example, W.I. Thomas came up with the Thomas theorem, and it goes something like this. Actually, yeah, it goes like this. Write it down in your refrigerator. I'm going to get this tattooed on me when I retire. If people believe that situations are real, then they are real in their consequences. Okay, yeah. So if people believe the situations are real, they are real in their consequences. So that's the social construction of reality. Things are real because we say they are real. I think I talked about this when we went through the syllabus, and I talked about race and how biologically there's no such thing as race. But since we think race is real, and it's real in its consequences, because there have been really grave consequences from thinking that race is real. Okay, so Thomas' theorem and the social construction of reality. This is where symbolic interactionism gets larger, where like shared meaning gets into like the macro level. Okay. Um, and there's many examples of that I could get to later. We'll keep talking about social constructionism in the course. Look up and kindly about how we can tell if something is socially constructed. It is very important. So look that up. Okay. Finally, I want to talk about feminist theory. Okay. A lot of people do not identify as feminists. Okay. Um, even if they believe in equal rights for women, they do not identify as feminists. Okay. There's a stigma to identifying oneself as a feminist. I think that that stigma much comes a lot from the media. Okay. Um, the conservative commentator Rush Limbaugh said, feminism was founded so that ugly, unattractive broads can have easy access to the mainstream. Okay, I'm not making this up. You can go look it up yourself if you want. So this is there's that stigma of feminism. Yet I think a lot of the people who have like negative views of feminism get their ideas of feminism from people who are not feminists. Okay, so it's more like a media construction things. But feminist theory and sociology, first of all, there's no unified feminist theory. There are many different kinds of feminism: liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist feminism, and intersectional feminism is what I'm into. Okay, looking at gender as well as race and class. Okay, and other intersections. We'll talk about intersectionality later in the course. But feminist theory is concerned with women's experiences and perspectives and promotes women's interests. This is a idea that you ask the question, where's the women here? How does this affect women? Let me give you an example. The functionalist sociologist named Talcott Parsons asked himself the question. He said, "Self, how does the family function?" And he says, well, the family functions like a lot of different kind of things function. The division of labor. And this is very Durkheimian way of viewing it because Durkheim wrote a book called The Division of Labor in Society. You got all these parts. So you got all these parts, you got all these roles, you got statuses and roles and things. So men take on the instrumental roles and are responsible for being the breadwinner and representing the family and the community. Women take on the expressive roles in which they take care of the emotional needs of the household, clean the house, things like that. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's also called doctrine of separate spheres and things. But feminists looked at this and said, wait a second, functional for whom? Because who has the power in this arrangement? You see, Parsons was saying that, well, they're both equal. They're equal partners. It's just, and there's no reason why the man does this and the woman does this. It's just the way it is. But feminists were saying, who has the power? The man has the power because he has the economic power. He's got the money. And the person who has the economic power in the relationship usually has the decision-making power. And so if she is economically dependent upon him, if he is abusive, can she leave? That's what feminists were asking. And the answer is no. She can't really, or it makes it a lot harder. Okay, so it's like you got to say, wait a second, where are the women in this? So this is where feminist theory contributes to like other theories. Is just says, wait a second, you're not thinking of the women. Okay, think of the women. So, and it views society as the differential treatment of men and women in society to men's advantage and to women's advantage. And this is the result of social forces and not nature. So, those are the four I'm going to go through. The other ones in the book are kind of fun, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on them. Postmodernism, for example, is a lot of fun, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it in this class. So you've got this, and then so we will, we'll then go on to next week. Okay, thank you. Bye.